The desert of Arva stretched endlessly under a sky of faded blue. The sun burned high above, and the wind carried fine golden dust that coated every rock and metal plate of the human camp. Explorers had been working there for weeks, digging through the shifting sands in search of something old and forgotten. They came not only for science but also for survival. The human colonies across the stars needed new energy sources, and strange signals had been picked up from beneath this desert world. Myra stood at the edge of the excavation site with a scanner in her hands. She was young but serious, her eyes sharp as she read the readings on her screen. The device showed steady pulses of energy buried deep underground. It was unlike anything she had seen before, and it did not match the natural patterns of the planet. She knew it came from something built long ago. Tomasz, her second in command, walked over carrying a pack of water. His face was lined from years of travel, and his voice carried a calm weight. Another spike in the signal, Myra told him, showing the screen. Whatever is down there, it is not natural. It is calling to us. Tomasz looked out at the dig. A dozen workers, both human and alien, were busy clearing sand and broken stone. Their tools hummed and clanged against the desert floor. The local alien settlers, tall with gray skin and bright yellow eyes, worked slower than the humans. They did not hide their fear. They whispered among themselves, warning that the desert was cursed, that no one should disturb the resting place beneath. One of the aliens, an elder named Raul, came forward and lifted a long finger toward the ground. "You should not dig here," he said in a low voice. "This land holds the dead of a forgotten war. Long ago, a guardian was placed here to protect them. Disturb it, and you will bring sorrow." Myra listened but did not step back. She respected Raul, for he had lived on Arvis all his life, but she could not abandon the mission. "We do not come to rob the dead," she replied gently. "We only seek to understand what lies beneath. The signals could save thousands of lives. We must know the truth." Raul shook his head but said nothing more. He returned to his people, leaving the humans to their work. By the second day, the workers uncovered the top of something strange. It was not a wall, nor a ruin, but a carved shape rising from the sand. At first it looked like a block of stone, dark and heavy. But as more sand was cleared, the shape grew clearer. It was a statue. A giant warrior stood frozen in the desert floor, its body half buried. The figure was tall, its stone armor thick, and in its hands it held a long blade that reached toward the ground. The eyes of the statue were carved deep, almost alive, staring into the distance. The workers stopped and stared. Even the humans felt uneasy now. The statue's presence was heavy, as though it was watching them. Tomasz wiped the sweat from his brow. "Looks like the old stories were true," he said. "A guardian after all." Myra moved closer, brushing away the sand from the statue's base with her gloves. She felt the cold stone beneath her hand. It was smooth, almost too smooth, as if the surface had not aged despite the countless years it had been buried. Her scanner buzzed sharply. The energy signal was strongest here, flowing directly from the statue itself. "This is it," she whispered. "This is what we came for." That evening, as the camp prepared for rest, strange unease spread among the team. The alien workers refused to eat and sat together in silence, watching the statue as if expecting it to move. The humans spoke in quiet tones, sharing their doubts. Some wanted to stop the excavation, but Myra held firm. She reminded them of the mission, of the colonies that waited for answers. Later that night, Tomasz approached her at the edge of the firelight. "The men are restless," he said. "And the aliens are close to leaving. They swear this guardian is cursed." "What if they are right?" Myra looked at the statue. Its eyes caught the starlight, and for a moment, they seemed to glow. She forced herself not to step back. "Legends are born from fear," she said, though her voice shook slightly. We cannot turn away because of a story. If there is truth in it, then we must face it. The next morning, the digging resumed. The humans worked with steady hands, but the aliens kept their distance. By noon, more of the statue was revealed. The sand fell away from its chest and arms, showing marks carved into the stone, strange runes that no one could read. The energy spikes grew sharper, flashing across Myra's scanner like a heartbeat. Then it happened. One of the human workers, a young man named Leo, placed his hand against the base of the statue, curious about the strange runes. He laughed nervously and said it felt warm, almost alive. But then his smile vanished. His body trembled, and his eyes went blank. He collapsed onto the sand, unconscious. The camp rushed to his side. Myra knelt beside him, scanning his vitals. His body was alive, his heart steady, but his mind was lost, as if trapped in some endless dream. He did not wake, no matter how they shook him or called his name. The aliens cried out in fear, pointing at the statue. Rahl spoke with trembling hands. I warned you. The Guardian does not allow the living to disturb the dead. He has been marked. Myra's face hardened. She looked at the silent stone figure rising above them. Its shadow stretched across the sand, dark and cold. Though it had not moved, she felt its gaze pressing upon her. She whispered to Tomasz, it is not only stone. There is something inside it. That night, no one slept. The winds howled across the desert, carrying with them the weight of something ancient. The statue stood tall in the moonlight, its carved eyes glowing faintly, as if it was waking from a long slumber. Tomasz swore he saw its head turn ever so slightly, watching over the camp. The cursed guardian had been found, and it was only the beginning. The morning sun rose over the desert of Arvis, but the camp felt colder than before. The discovery of the giant statue had filled the humans with excitement at first, but after what happened to Leo, a heavy fear spread through the team. He still lay in the medical tent, breathing and alive, but his eyes remained closed. No sound or touch could wake him. He looked like someone trapped in a dream without end. Myra stayed beside him for a long time, holding the scanner in her hands, studying his condition again and again. The readings were confusing. His brain showed signs of activity, as if he was experiencing strong visions, but she could not reach him. Tomasz entered the tent, carrying a tray of water and bread. He placed it on the table and stood beside her. You need to rest, he told her. I cannot, Myra replied. Something touched him when he placed his hand on the statue. It is not only stone. It holds power, maybe even a mind. I must understand what it did to him. Tomasz folded his arms. Or we must stop before it does worse. Myra looked at him sharply. If we stop now, everything we came for will be lost. This energy can change the future of our colonies. We cannot turn away because of fear. Outside, the workers gathered near the excavation site, whispering nervously. The humans spoke in low voices, some blaming Myra for pushing too far. The alien settlers stood apart, their yellow eyes fixed on the statue. They refused to step closer. The elder Rahl raised his staff and spoke to the group. This is the guardian of the dead, he said firmly. It does not sleep. It waits. Those who touch it will fall. If you dig deeper, the curse will not stop with one man. It will take all of you. The humans listened uneasily, but no one dared to answer. Myra walked out of the tent and faced Rahl. Her voice was calm but strong. We respect your warnings, Elder. But we are not here to steal. We seek only to learn. The signal beneath this desert may hold answers that can save many lives. We must continue. Rahl's eyes narrowed. You think knowledge will protect you. But the dead do not forgive. The guardian was placed to stop intruders. It does not know the difference between thieves and seekers. With that, he turned and led his people away from the dig site. They camped farther from the statue, refusing to come near it again. That night, strange things began to happen. The wind picked up, howling through the desert like a voice calling out from long ago. The sand shifted around the statue, as if something beneath was moving. Tomasz, who had been on watch, swore he saw the statue's fingers twitch when the moonlight touched them. He rubbed his eyes and told himself it was only a trick of shadows, but his heart beat faster. The next morning, Myra gathered the team and ordered them to continue digging. The humans obeyed, though their hands shook as they worked. More of the statue's body was revealed, showing detailed armor plates and markings carved into its surface. The runes glowed faintly, as if light moved beneath the stone. Suddenly, one of the workers shouted. He had uncovered a round platform of black stone at the base of the statue. It was wide and smooth, with strange symbols carved into it. The energy signals from Myra's scanner went wild, flashing so brightly that she had to lower the screen. The platform seemed to pulse like a living heart. Before Myra could study it, another worker, filled with curiosity, leaned down and brushed his hand across the surface. A sharp crack rang through the air like thunder. The man screamed and stumbled back, clutching his head. His eyes rolled, and he fell to the ground, shaking. This time, the humans pulled him away quickly, shouting in fear. Myra scanned him and found the same pattern as Leo. His body was alive, but his mind was gone, trapped in the same deep dream. Two men now lay in the medical tent, breathing but silent. The camp erupted in panic. Some demanded that the excavation be stopped immediately. Others shouted that the statue was alive and would kill them all. The alien settlers began to chant old words in their language, asking their ancestors to protect them. Myra raised her voice above the noise. Everyone stay calm. We cannot let fear control us. This place holds danger, yes, but also answers. If the guardian can strike, then it can also be understood. We must learn its nature. But her words did not silence their fear. That evening, as the camp prepared for rest, Tomasz approached her again. His voice was firm. You cannot ignore this any longer. Two men are lost. How many more before you admit the truth? The guardian does not want us here. Myra looked at the statue standing in the moonlight. Its eyes glowed faintly, and for a heartbeat, she thought she saw the stone lips move. A cold shiver ran down her spine. She whispered, "It is not only stone. It is watching us." Tomasz frowned. Then why stay? Why risk everything? Because, she answered, if it watches, then it listens. And if it listens, we may still speak to it. Perhaps we can prove we are not enemies. That night, the wind grew stronger. The desert shook with a low rumble, as if something deep underground was stirring. The workers lay awake, staring at the statue, afraid to close their eyes. Some swore they heard voices whispering in their dreams, voices of warriors long dead. Then, just before dawn, it happened. The ground trembled, and the statue's eyes lit up fully with a deep golden glow. The camp froze, silent and terrified. A sound like grinding stone filled the air, and the statue's head tilted ever so slightly, as though it was looking down at the humans. No one moved. The guardian had given its first warning, and it was clear now that it was no legend. It was alive. The desert of Arvis was silent after the statue moved. The humans stood frozen, their eyes wide as they stared at the glowing gaze of the guardian. The aliens had already fallen to their knees, whispering prayers to the old spirits. Even the wind seemed to stop, as though the world itself waited for what would happen next. Myra's heart pounded, but she forced herself to take a step forward. The light in the statue's eyes burned brighter, like fire trapped behind stone. The great figure tilted its head, and the grinding of rock echoed across the dig site. For a moment, it looked as if the desert itself was alive. Then the statue spoke. The sound was deep and heavy, like thunder rolling through a mountain. None may enter the tomb of the fallen. None may disturb the silence of the dead. The humans gasped. Some backed away, dropping their tools. Tomasz raised his arm as if to shield Myra, but she did not step back. Her voice shook, yet she forced herself to speak. We are explorers. We did not mean harm. We only seek to learn. The guardian's eyes fixed on her. All who dig here mean harm. I was forged to protect this ground. The soldiers below sleep in honor. No hand may reach them, no eye may see them. Leave, or be broken. The words echoed through the camp. The aliens looked at Myra as if expecting her to kneel and beg for forgiveness. Tomasz touched her arm and whispered, "We should go. It is warning us. If we stay, it will kill us all." But Myra shook her head. No. If it was going to destroy us, it would have done so already. It is giving us a chance. That means it can be reasoned with. She stepped closer to the statue, though her legs trembled. "Guardian," she said, raising her voice so it would hear, "we are not thieves. We respect the dead. But the energy here is powerful. Our people are in need. Can you not allow us to learn?" Without disturbing the tomb itself. For a long silence, the statue did not reply. Then the golden light in its eyes flickered, and suddenly, the desert around them changed. The workers cried out in shock as the sands vanished, replaced by a battlefield of fire and ash. The air burned with smoke, and the ground shook with the sound of marching armies. Ghostly shapes of warriors rose all around, their armor shining, their weapons glowing. They clashed in silence, striking with blades and fire, though no sound of pain came from their mouths. It was a vision, a memory carried in the guardian's mind. Myra turned slowly, her eyes wide. She watched as two armies fought, the sand stained red by rivers that did not exist. Towers of stone collapsed in the distance, and the ground was littered with fallen soldiers. The smell of smoke filled the air even though it was only an illusion. The guardian's voice boomed over the battlefield. "This is the war that filled these tombs. Millions died, not for greed, but for survival. The galaxy was broken. The dead here gave everything to save it. I was created to guard their rest. Would you disturb such sacrifice?" Tomasz dropped to one knee, clutching his head. The images were too heavy, too real. Some of the humans began to weep as they saw the faces of the fallen, faces that looked too alive to be forgotten. The aliens bowed low, whispering in their tongue, asking forgiveness from the spirits. But Myra stood tall. Her chest ached with sorrow at what she saw, but she did not turn away. She lifted her voice against the thunder of war. "I see them. I honor them. Humanity knows sacrifice too. We bury our own dead with respect, and we tell their stories so they are never forgotten. We are not here to dishonor the fallen. We are here to remember them." The battlefield froze. The flames dimmed, the soldiers vanished, and once more the desert returned around them. The guardian's eyes narrowed. Words are easy. But honor is proven by deeds. Its chest split open with a sound like breaking stone. Beneath the outer layer of rock was metal, ancient yet shining, with lines of light running like veins across its surface. The workers stumbled back as they realized the statue was not only stone but a machine. It was armor built around a living core of technology. The guardian raised its massive stone blade, pointing it toward the humans. The ground shook as it stepped forward for the first time in centuries. "If you wish to pass, you will face the trial of memory. Only those who carry the weight of the fallen may be judged worthy." The humans panicked. Some ran back toward the ships, shouting that they would not face a curse. Others dropped to the ground, begging Myra to end the mission. The aliens covered their eyes, unwilling to see what was to come. Tomasz grabbed Myra's shoulder. "This is madness. You cannot fight it. No human can stand against such power." Myra looked up at the towering guardian. It is not asking for a fight. It is asking for proof. If we leave now, we will never know the truth. But if we face it, we may gain more than we dreamed. The guardian's golden eyes burned brighter, lighting the desert like a second Sunday. Choose, it commanded. Turn back and live in ignorance, or step forward and carry the burden of the dead. Myra felt the weight of the choice pressing on her chest. Behind her, the workers trembled, waiting for her command. Before her, the guardian loomed, eternal and unbroken. She clenched her fists, her voice steady as she answered. We will face the trial. The desert grew still. The guardian lowered its blade slightly, its massive body glowing with lines of ancient power. The sand shifted, opening a pathway into the ground at its feet. Darkness yawned below, leading into the tomb. The guardian stepped aside, its voice rumbling like a storm. Then enter, and let the dead decide your worth. Myra looked at Tomasz. His face was pale, but he nodded. Together they led the team forward, standing at the edge of the dark passage. The statue's glowing eyes followed them, and the desert wind carried a whisper that felt older than time. The trial of memory had begun. The opening in the sand gaped wide like the mouth of some ancient beast. A stairway of stone descended into the earth, dark and cold. The air that drifted upward carried the scent of dust and old fire, as though the tomb had been waiting for countless ages. Myra stood at the entrance, staring down into the shadows. Behind her, the workers whispered nervously. Some refused to step closer, their fear stronger than any promise of reward. The alien settlers had already fallen to their knees, heads bowed to the guardian who now stood beside the opening, its glowing eyes fixed on the humans. You enter by choice, the guardian said, its voice deep as a drum. No hand will guide you, no shield will protect you. Within lies the trial. You must prove your honor before the dead. Myra nodded. Her throat felt dry, but her voice was steady. We accept. Tomasz moved beside her, gripping the small lamp in his hand. His face was pale, yet his steps did not falter. If we go in, he said quietly, we go together. One by one, a few brave workers followed, though many stayed behind at the surface, unwilling to descend. The group moved slowly, their lamps casting weak light along the walls of the passage. Strange carvings lined the stone, showing figures of warriors locked in battle. Their faces were sharp, their weapons raised. It was as though the walls themselves remembered the war. The deeper they went, the colder the air became. The silence pressed on them, broken only by the sound of their footsteps. Finally, the stairway opened into a vast chamber lit by a faint glow. The walls shone with runes that pulsed softly, like the beat of a heart. In the center of the chamber stood a circle of black stone. As the humans entered, the runes flared bright. A wave of energy swept across the chamber, and the air shimmered like heat on metal. Suddenly, they were no longer standing in the quiet tomb. The chamber vanished, replaced by a vision so real it stole the breath from their lungs. Myra found herself standing in a field under a stormy sky. Lightning tore across the heavens. Before her stretched an army of armored soldiers, their eyes burning with fire. On the opposite side of the field stood another army, just as fierce, their banners raised high. The ground shook as drums of war echoed. Tomasz turned in a circle, gasping. It is not real, it cannot be real. But the storm stung his skin, the ground trembled beneath his feet, and the cries of warriors filled the air. It felt real in every way. A figure stepped forward from the ranks of the glowing soldiers. His armor was cracked, his blade heavy, but his eyes blazed with the strength of a leader. He raised his hand toward Myra. You come to disturb our rest. Why should we allow you to stand among us if you respect the dead? Prove it. Myra's chest tightened. I do not seek to steal. I only want to understand who you were. I want to carry your story so the galaxy remembers. The soldier's voice thundered. Words are wind. Show us your truth. The armies roared, charging across the field. The humans screamed as waves of ghostly warriors clashed around them. Blades cut through the air, fire rained from the sky, and the battlefield shook with fury. Yet none of the humans were struck. The battle swirled past them like a storm, daring them to stand or flee. Tomasz fell to his knees, covering his head. It is too much. We should not be here. Myra grabbed his arm, pulling him up. Stand with me. Do not let them see fear. She walked forward into the chaos, her voice rising against the thunder. I see your fight. I see your sacrifice. Humanity knows this pain. We too have buried our fallen. We too have shed blood to protect our future. We do not run from the memory of the dead. We honor it. The storm paused for a moment, as though the battlefield listened. Then another vision struck her. She was standing before a line of graves under the stars. Human graves, marked with simple stones. Faces of her own people appeared, those she had lost in other journeys, those who had given their lives for survival. Her chest ached with grief, but she did not turn away. A whisper filled the air. Do you carry them with you, even when the weight breaks your heart? Myra's voice cracked, but she answered, yes. To be human is to carry the weight of the fallen. To remember, even when it hurts. We cannot forget them. The vision shifted again. Now the dead soldiers of the ancient war stood in a circle around her. Their eyes glowed with fire, but their faces were calm. The leader stepped forward once more, his blade lowered. You do not fear our memory. You speak of respect. But will you accept our burden? If we give it to you, it will never leave your soul. Myra swallowed hard, her hands trembling. If it means the galaxy remembers you, I will accept it. The warrior raised his hand. A blaze of light struck her chest, and for an instant she felt the weight of thousands of voices pressing into her mind. The cries of battle, the silence of death, the last breaths of warriors who had given everything. It was almost too much to bear. Her knees buckled, but she refused to fall. Tomasz rushed forward, catching her. Myra, stop this. It will kill you. She shook her head, standing tall again. No. This is what it means to honor them. The voices grew softer, settling inside her like a fire that would never die. She breathed deeply, and for the first time she felt not fear, but connection. These dead were not strangers. They were guardians, and now their memory flowed through her. The battlefield faded, and once more the humans found themselves in the tomb chamber. The runes on the walls dimmed, leaving only the faint glow of the circle. Myra stood in the center, her chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. The workers stared at her with wide eyes, unable to speak. Then the guardian's voice filled the chamber, echoing from every stone. You have faced the trial of memory. You have not turned away from grief. You have carried the burden. But the test is not over. You must still choose. What will you do with the knowledge of the dead? The chamber fell silent, the weight of the question pressing on everyone. Myra looked around at her people, then lifted her head toward the unseen guardian. Her answer would decide not only their fate, but perhaps the fate of all who came after. The battle of wills had only begun. The chamber was quiet after the storm of visions. Myra stood in the center of the circle, her body heavy with the weight of voices still whispering in her mind. She could feel the sorrow of the dead, the courage of their last breaths, and the sharp edge of their sacrifice. Every heartbeat reminded her that she was no longer carrying only her own memories but theirs as well. The others stared at her in silence. Some of the workers looked at her with awe, while others with fear. Tomasz placed a hand on her shoulder, his voice low but steady. Myra, you are pale. Can you go on? I must, she answered. The trial is not finished. If I stop now, then all this wait means nothing. The runes along the chamber walls flared once more, filling the room with soft light. The voice of the guardian rolled through the air, deep and commanding. The dead have seen your respect, but honor is not only spoken. It is lived. Enter deeper into the tomb, and face the truth of who you are. Only then will your worth be judged. The black stone circle shifted, and part of the floor sank down to reveal a second passage. Cold air rushed upward, carrying the scent of earth untouched by time. Myra stepped toward it without hesitation. Tomash followed at her side, though his hands trembled. A few workers, torn between fear and loyalty, chose to continue with them. The rest remained behind, too afraid to descend. The passage led them into another vast chamber, larger than the first. This one was filled with rows of stone coffins, each carved with the image of a soldier resting with his weapon. A faint blue glow hovered above them, like the last breath of stars. The silence here was heavier, as if the air itself mourned. Myra walked slowly between the rows, her eyes lowered in respect. "They are here," she whispered. "The ones we saw in the vision." As she spoke, the glow above the coffins thickened, rising into shapes of light. One by one, ghostly figures appeared. They were not angry now. They were calm, their faces solemn as they surrounded the humans. A voice came, not from the guardian, but from the spirits themselves. It was many voices speaking as one. "Why do you seek us? If you are truly different from thieves, then you must answer our questions. You must reveal your heart." Myra took a deep breath. "Ask, and I will answer." The first spirit stepped forward. His eyes were sharp, his armor cracked from battle. "Would you use our strength for conquest? If we gave you our secrets, would you build weapons to rule others?" Myra shook her head. "No. Humanity has known the cost of war. We fight only when we must. If I carried such power, I would not use it to conquer but to protect those who cannot protect themselves." The spirit's fiery eyes dimmed, and he stepped back into the circle. Another came forward, her face young, her voice clear. "Would you forget us after you leave? Would you take our story and let it vanish in silence?" Myra pressed her hand against her chest. "Never. I carry you now. I will tell your story so others know you lived, so others know you gave everything. To remember is the greatest honor we can give." The spirit studied her for a moment, then bowed her head and faded into the glow. A third spirit rose, tall and strong, his voice heavy like thunder. "Human, your kind is young. You hunger for knowledge, but knowledge can burn. If we share what lies here, will you be strong enough to carry it, or will your people fall as we once fell?" Myra's throat tightened. She thought of the colonies far away, the men and women waiting for hope. She thought of the graves she had seen, of humans who had died in wars of their own. "I cannot promise we will never fall," she admitted. "But I can promise we will try. We will learn from the past. We will carry your warning with us, so we do not repeat your end." The chamber grew still. The spirits whispered among themselves, their voices like wind through stone. Then they spoke as one. "You answer with honesty, not pride. But one last question remains. Do you accept that the dead are not tools, not weapons, but people like you, who wished for peace even as they died?" Myra's eyes filled with tears. She looked around at the countless coffins, at the silent rows of warriors who had given everything. Her voice trembled, but her words were firm. "Yes. I see them not as tools, not as power to be taken, but as people who deserve to be remembered. I will not treat them as things. I will honor them as lives." The spirits glowed brighter, and then the vision of the chamber changed once again. Myra found herself standing in a hall of mirrors. In each reflection, she saw herself. In one, she stood tall as a leader, guiding her people with strength. In another, she saw herself broken, leading her people to ruin. In another, she walked away, leaving the tomb behind, never knowing its secrets. Tomash appeared beside her in the mirrors, sometimes standing with her, sometimes walking away. She realized this was the last part of the trial. Not only the voices of the dead but the test of her own choices. The guardian's voice returned, filling the hall. The dead have asked, and you have answered. But now you must decide. Will you take what you have seen and use it for gain, or will you walk with respect, carrying the burden of memory, not the weight of weapons? Myra stood silently for a long time. Then she raised her head. I choose memory. I choose to carry your story, not your power. Let the galaxy know who you were, so your sacrifice is never forgotten. That is the honor I offer. The mirrors shattered, and the vision faded. Myra fell to her knees in the real chamber, gasping for breath. The spirits faded back into soft blue light, their faces calm. The runes along the walls dimmed until only the faintest glow remained. The guardian's voice rumbled from above, deep with finality. The trial is complete. You have spoken truth. You have carried weight. The dead accept your honor. Myra bowed her head, tears slipping down her cheeks. Around her, the workers knelt in silence. Even Tomash, though shaken, lowered his head in respect. For the first time, the tomb did not feel heavy with curse but alive with solemn peace. The trial was over, but the choice Myra made would echo beyond the desert of Arvis. The chamber was quiet after the voices faded. Myra remained on her knees, her breath still uneven. She could feel the calm presence of the spirits watching from the shadows, no longer filled with anger. The trial was finished, yet something deeper stirred in the air, as if the tomb was waiting for one last choice. Tomash helped her to her feet. Myra, it is done. We passed. Let us go before this place closes around us. But Myra shook her head slowly. No. This is not the end. The Guardian has not revealed the true reason this tomb was built. There is more hidden here. The workers exchanged worried looks. The runes along the walls flickered like fading stars, and then one section of the stone floor groaned and shifted. A new path opened, narrow and steep, leading into the earth below the coffins. A cold draft rose from it, carrying the smell of stone and something faintly metallic. Without hesitation, Myra stepped forward. Tomash muttered a curse under his breath but followed close behind. Two of the bravest workers came as well, their lanterns casting trembling light into the dark passage. The tunnel twisted downward, deeper than they expected. The air grew colder, the silence heavier. Finally, they entered a chamber unlike any they had seen. It was vast, with walls carved smooth, not rough like the upper tomb. In the center stood a circular platform, and on it rested a massive crystal. Its surface glowed faintly blue, pulsing like a heart. Around it were rows of stone statues, each carved in the shape of a warrior holding a spear. Myra stopped in awe. This is the secret they protected. The Guardian's voice filled the chamber once again, slow and deep. You have honored the dead. You have spoken with truth. Now you may know what lies beyond memory. The crystal brightened, and images flickered within it. Myra and the others saw the ancient war that had destroyed the people buried above. Vast fleets of ships clashed in the stars, fire cutting through the darkness. The warriors of the tomb fought bravely, but they were outnumbered. Worlds burned, cities crumbled, and families wept. The crystal then showed the final act of those warriors. Instead of fleeing, they created this tomb as a prison for their last weapon. The statues that stood guard were not mere stone but vessels holding the essence of their fallen. The crystal in the center was more than memory. It was power, gathered from every warrior who had died. The Guardian's voice grew heavy. This crystal holds the strength of thousands, bound together so no enemy may take it. The warriors chose to die here, guarding it for eternity. This is their secret, their gift, and their curse. The workers gasped, their eyes wide with fear and wonder. Tomash whispered, if this power is real, Myra, then what we stand before could change everything. It could protect our colonies forever. We cannot leave it here. Myra stared at the glowing crystal. The weight of its light pressed against her chest. She understood now why the tomb had tested her. If this power was misused, it could doom humanity the same way it had doomed the ancient people. The question was not whether they could take it, but whether they should. One of the statues stirred. Its stone face cracked, and faint blue light glowed within its eyes. Slowly, it lifted its spear and spoke in a voice that echoed across the chamber. Do not mistake silence for weakness. We remain as guardians. If you seek to take what is not yours, we will rise again. Myra's heart raced. The statues were alive, bound by the essence of the fallen. She bowed her head deeply. I do not wish to steal from you. I only wish to understand, so that we may honor you and avoid the mistakes that destroyed your world. The statue lowered its spear. The glow in its eyes dimmed but did not vanish. It seemed to be watching, judging her every word. The guardian spoke once more. The dead cannot rise again, but their memory can live in you. If you take the crystal, you carry not only their strength but their sorrow. It will bind itself to your people, and their story will become your burden. Choose carefully, human, for the dead cannot guide you further. Myra closed her eyes. She thought of her colony, struggling to survive on distant worlds. She thought of her people, vulnerable to raiders and hostile fleets. The crystal could be their salvation. Yet she also thought of the voices she had heard, voices heavy with pain. To carry their power meant to carry their tragedy. Tomasz stepped forward, his eyes fixed on the crystal. Myra, you cannot hesitate. Humanity is weak compared to the others who roam the stars. This is our chance to be strong. If we walk away, we leave our people defenseless. Myra looked at him sharply. And if we take it without respect, we repeat the same fall they faced. I will not lead us into the same darkness. The silence stretched. The workers shifted nervously, unsure which of them was right. The crystal pulsed brighter, as if listening to their debate. Finally, Myra stepped closer to the crystal. She placed her hand gently against its glowing surface. The moment her skin touched it, warmth rushed through her, followed by a flood of voices. Thousands of whispers filled her mind, not angry this time but calm, like waves against the shore. They spoke not of war, but of love, of families, of the simple things they had left behind. Myra understood then. The true power of the crystal was not its ability to destroy. It was memory itself. The warriors had poured not only their strength but their lives, their hopes, their dreams into it. Whoever carried it would carry them all. She removed her hand and turned to Tomasz. This is not a weapon. It is a reminder. We must take it not to conquer, but to remember. If we carry it with respect, it may guide us. If we treat it as a tool of war, it will curse us. Tomasz looked torn, his jaw tight. He wanted strength, but he could not deny the truth in her voice. The guardian gave its final words. You have seen the secret. You have heard the voices of the dead. The choice is yours, Myra of humanity. Take the crystal, and carry the burden. Leave it, and the tomb will remain closed forever. What you decide will echo through your people for generations. The chamber fell silent again. The statues stood still, their eyes dim. The crystal pulsed slowly, waiting. Myra felt the weight of the moment pressing down on her. Whatever she chose now would decide not only her fate but the fate of all her people. The chamber was silent except for the faint hum of the glowing crystal. Myra stood before it, her hand trembling as the weight of the decision pressed against her heart. The voices of the fallen still lingered in her mind, gentle yet heavy with sorrow. Around her, Tomasz and the workers waited anxiously, their eyes fixed on her. Tomasz stepped closer. His voice was low but urgent. Myra, we cannot leave this here. Do you not see what it means? Our colonies are small, our fleets are weak. The crystal is our chance to survive. If we leave it, others may find it one day and use it against us. Myra's eyes stayed on the glowing surface. And if we take it without respect, Tomash, we risk repeating the same path of destruction. These warriors gave their lives not for conquest but to protect what mattered to them. Their memory must be honored, not turned into another weapon. The statues around the chamber loomed in silence. Their stone faces seemed to listen, as if waiting for the choice to be spoken aloud. One of the workers, an older man with a scar across his cheek, cleared his throat. My father died protecting our settlement. He carried no weapon as powerful as this. If he had, perhaps he would still be alive. Myra, I believe Tomash is right. This crystal could save lives. Another worker, a young woman, shook her head quickly. But what if it changes us? What if carrying it makes us proud and careless? We could lose ourselves the way these ancient people did. Their voices filled the chamber with tension. Myra felt the pull of both arguments. She thought of her people struggling to survive far from Earth, their small ships vulnerable to raiders. She also thought of the sorrow she had felt inside the crystal, the weight of lives lost to endless war. Finally, Myra closed her eyes and whispered, more to herself than to anyone else, "What do the dead truly ask of us?" The crystal pulsed brighter, almost like it had heard her. Warmth spread across the chamber, and for a moment the whispers returned. They were softer now, filled with calm. Myra understood. The dead did not want to be forgotten. Their true wish was that their story would live on, so no one else would fall into the same darkness. She opened her eyes and placed her hand firmly on the crystal. "I will take it," she said, her voice steady. "But not as a weapon. I will carry it as a memory, as a guide for our people. We will not use it for conquest. We will use it to remember what happens when power blinds us." The chamber shook gently, but not in anger. The statues lowered their spears as if bowing. Their eyes dimmed, and for the first time, silence felt like approval. The guardian's voice filled the air, deep and final. "So be it. The crystal is yours, Myra of humanity. Carry it with wisdom, and the burden will not destroy you. Forget its meaning, and its curse will awaken once more." The crystal lifted from the platform. Slowly, it floated into Myra's arms, lighter than it appeared but warm with the touch of countless souls. She cradled it carefully, feeling the steady pulse of life within. Tomash looked at her with both awe and doubt. "Do you truly believe you can keep such a promise, Myra?" "The leaders of our colonies will not listen to words about honor. They will see power and want to use it." Myra met his gaze firmly. "Then it is my duty to remind them. If they try to turn it into a weapon, I will speak the voices of the dead. I will show them what happened here. If they do not listen, then the curse will not fall on me but on them." Tomash hesitated, then gave a slow nod. He still carried fear in his heart, but he respected her choice. The workers followed Myra as she began the climb back up the winding passage. The tomb grew quieter as they left, the runes on the walls dimming until only the faint glow of their lanterns guided the way. When they reached the surface, the air outside felt fresh and sharp, as if the world itself had changed. The desert stretched wide beneath the stars. Myra held the crystal against her chest, and for a moment she looked up at the sky. She imagined the souls of the warriors watching, no longer trapped in sorrow but at peace knowing their memory would live on. Days later, their ship lifted from the barren world. The crystal rested safely within the cabin, glowing faintly like a second sun. The workers whispered about it with both fear and hope, unsure of what future it carried. As the ship crossed the dark expanse of space, Myra sat quietly beside the crystal. She thought of her colony and the challenges waiting ahead. She thought of the leaders who would demand to use it for defense, perhaps even for war. She knew the arguments were coming, but she also knew her choice was clear. She whispered softly, I will not let you be forgotten. Your story will live with us. The crystal pulsed warmly in her arms, as if answering. When the ship finally reached the colony, people gathered to see what Myra had brought back. The leaders' eyes lit with greed when they saw the glow, and their voices rose in excitement about what could be done with such power. But Myra stood before them firmly, the crystal held close, and spoke with calm strength. This is not a weapon, she told them. This is the memory of a people who destroyed themselves through war. If you use it to fight, you will share their fate. But if you keep it as a reminder, as a guide, it may help us survive in another way. It may help us remember that power without wisdom is death. Some leaders argued, demanding control. Others listened quietly, uncertain. But among the common people, whispers spread of what Myra had done. They spoke of how she had passed the trials of the tomb, how she had faced the guardian without fear, how she had chosen respect over conquest. To them, the crystal became a symbol not of war but of hope. In the nights that followed, children came to see the glow of the crystal. Myra told them the stories she had seen within it, stories of bravery, of sacrifice, and of the price of pride. Their eyes filled with wonder, and she knew then that the dead were truly being remembered. The curse of the statue had not been broken, but it had been transformed. It no longer stood as a warning of destruction but as a reminder of choice. Humanity would carry the memory of the fallen, and through that memory, they would shape their future. Myra looked once more at the stars. Somewhere out there, other tombs and other secrets might wait. But she no longer feared them. She knew that as long as humanity chose wisely, they would endure. The crystal pulsed softly, steady as a heartbeat. And for the first time since entering the cursed tomb, Myra felt at peace.